Jesus had siblings. Catholics seem not to believe this, which is a crazy thing. The Catholics believe that Mary remained a virgin her whole life. She didn't. Jesus had brothers, he had sisters. We're actually going to read about them in just a second. But I find it amazing that has become such a part of the Catholic tradition, and it's so wrong. I mean, you look back in history, Joseph had children. And the Catholics go so far as to say, oh no, Joseph's children, they were from a previous marriage. It's like, where is that documented in the Bible? You know what is documented in the Bible? Jesus' brothers and sisters. And yet Catholics still choose to believe that Mary remained a virgin her whole life. You could continue to believe that if you want, but it's false. In Matthew chapter 13, isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? See, right there it says Jesus had brothers, folks. Catholics need to read Matthew chapter 13, verse 55. Mary didn't stay a virgin her whole life. I'm sorry to break that news to you, Catholics. Verse 56. Aren't all his sisters with us?
Right, because no Catholic in the last 2,000 years has ever read and thought through Matthew 13:55. Cool! So I spent some time trying to find the full video that this clip was taken out of to get a better rounded understanding of what Bible Time with Charlie's arguments are, or at least what his thinking is behind his arguments. Couldn't find it, so hopefully I represent his view well enough from this short clip. Bible Time with Charlie made 4 claims. Jesus had brothers. If we look at history, we will see that Joseph had children. The idea that Joseph's children were from a previous marriage is not in the Bible, neither is claimed to, but we'll get to that. And Matthew 13:55 proves that Mary had other sons. We will go through each of these claims one by one, but before we do, this clip was sent to me by an honorary patron. He's an honorary patron and not an actual patron because he sporadically donates to the mission. You can also sporadically donate to the mission of Christdefender via buymeacoffee.com/Christdefender. That's for one-off donations. If you don't have commitment issues and you want to become a monthly supporter, you can do that too at patreon.com/Christdefender. Do it so I can pay my rent. But also so that when you come across reels or TikToks or YouTube shorts that make you mad, you can send them to me and I'll get mad. No, I won't, but I will do a video response to them, like you wish someone would. So become a noob patron for as little as £1 per month. My unofficial unpaid manager keeps telling me to say the prices in dollars, and I keep refusing because though you all may be American, I'm not. £1 is something like the price of a cup of coffee from a street vendor in the 90s. $2? Do that, you'll get early access to all YouTube videos, or become a Don patron and you'll get early access plus behind the scenes stuff, ask me anythings, and other exclusives. That's patreon.com/Christdefender. 4 claims from the top.
Jesus had brothers, he had sisters. We're actually going to read about them in just a second.
The first thing I would like to point out is that both Protestants and Catholics don't understand brothers in the strictest sense when it comes to Jesus or other people in the Bible. We all believe in the virgin birth. This is important to take note of because it seems that Protestants will sometimes, like Bible Time with Charlie does, make out as if Catholics have to do some kind of mental gymnastics in order to get to their interpretation, and they'll scoff at the Catholic interpretation, though none of us take scripture strictly and superficially when it comes to these brethren of the Lord, or other references to Jesus's brothers and sisters. A plain reading of, for example, Matthew 13:55 doesn't tell Charlie or any Protestant everything he needs to know about Jesus' relationship to these people, about who these people are. Now, Bible Time with Charlie believes that these people are half siblings of Jesus's, not full siblings, which would be the strict sense of the term brother. So we're all having to do work to understand what scripture is saying. The second thing I'd like to point out is that what Bible Time with Charlie believes is actually a late Protestant teaching. It's not the historically accepted view of Christians, including the Reformers. Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, John Wesley, they didn't believe what Bible Time with Charlie believes about Mary. Modern Protestants have developed a doctrinal tradition that departs even from their own religious forebearers. Now, are these men named in Matthew 13:55, James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon, are these men Jesus' half-siblings from Mary? He relies on Matthew 13:55 to prove that these men are Jesus' uterine brothers. There are actually like 10 instances where people are called Jesus' brothers. When trying to understand these verses, note that the term brother has a wide meaning in Scripture. It is not, in Scripture, restricted to the literal meaning of a full brother, nor even of a half brother. The Old Testament shows us that brother had a wide semantic range of meaning. It could refer to any male relative from whom you were not descended. Male relatives from whom you were descended would be referred to as fathers, like in reference to Abraham, our father, and male relatives who are not descended from you, who would be referred to as sons. Other male relatives, as well as kinsmen, like cousins, those who are related by marriage or law rather than blood, and even friends or mere political allies could be referred to by brothers. For example, Lot is called Abraham's brother, but Lot is the son of Haran. Haran is Abraham's brother, making Lot Abraham's nephew. Similarly, Jacob is called the brother of his uncle Laban. Kish and Eleazar were the sons of Mali. Kish had sons, Eleazar only had daughters. He had no sons. But we read that his daughters married their brethren, gross, the sons of Kish. These brethren were really their cousins. The terms brothers, brother, and sister did not only refer to close relatives. It is not enough to have a superficial reading of Matthew 13:55 or any of the other instances and conclude simply from this superficial reading of this verse taken out of context that Jesus had full or half siblings just because they're called brethren or brothers or sisters. To do so is to ignore the typical biblical usage and the cultural usage of the writers, and to just read your theology into the text. A theology that has devolved even from your own Protestant forebearers. So, there's this super crucial detail to consider when asking the question, did Jesus have uterine brothers? Let's jump forward though in Matthew's Gospel, where we will find James and Joseph, or Joseph, mentioned again together. Only this time, their mother is mentioned. James and Joseph, or Joseph, are not brothers of Jesus from the same mother. Their mother is a different Mary, as Matthew's Gospel calls her, the other Mary, clearly distinguishing their mother from the Mary we would all immediately think of. What about Judas and Simon? Who are they? Judas, or Jude, is the writer of the last of the epistles. He is, and with good reason, identified by Catholic commentators with Judas Jacobi, meaning Jude, the brother of James. Jude, the brother of James, of Luke 6:16 and Acts 1:13. otherwise known as Thaddeus. In accord with Greek custom, a man may be distinguished by the addition of his brother's name instead of his father's if the brother is more famous. Such was the case, it seems, with Jude, as is inferred from the title the brother of James, by which he designates himself in his epistle. If Jude was the brother of Jesus, and that custom would be to attach your better known brother to your name, surely he would have attached Jesus's name or refer to himself in his letter as Jude, the brother of Jesus. As for Simon, it seems that nothing certain can be stated. He's identified by most commentators with Simeon or Simon, who, according to Hegesippus, how on earth do you pronounce this? Hegesippus. Seriously. Hegesippus. I hope that's right. He's identified by most commentators as Simeon or Simon, who, according to Hegesippus, was a son of Clopas and succeeded James as Bishop of Jerusalem. Others identify him as one of the apostles, Simon the Canaanian, or the Zealot. The grouping together of James, Jude, and Simon after the other apostles in the lists of the apostles lends some probability to this view, since it seems to indicate some kind of connection between them. It is certain that at least two of the brethren of Jesus were among the apostles, clearly implied in 1 Corinthians 9:5. Have we not the power to carry about a woman, a sister, as well as the rest of the apostles and the brethren of the Lord, and Cephas? The mention of Cephas at the end indicates that Paul, after speaking of the apostles in general, calls special attention to the more prominent ones, the brethren of the Lord and Cephas. So the breakdown of this first claim basically can be summed up into the sentence: there is more to reading the Bible than reading the Bible. Which leads us to claim 2.
So wrong. I mean, you look back in history, Joseph had children.
Let's do that. Let's look back at history. First of all, the belief that Joseph had children doesn't contradict the Catholic position. He seems to know that because he scoffs at the Catholic tradition in favor of his own. So I'm not really sure why he makes an appeal to look at history. Scripture doesn't tell us that Joseph had children. Think about that for a second. Scripture does not tell you that Joseph had children. You won't find a single place in the New Testament that concludes for you and I that these, or anyone, were the sons and daughters of Joseph. Why then do Protestants, like Bible Time with Charlie, believe that Joseph had children, like it's the most obvious thing in the world? Well, very early in church history, AD 140 roundabouts, we find in the Proto-Evangelium or Proto-Gospel, first Gospel of James, which is an Eastern writing, the claim that Joseph was a widower who already had children, who was selected to take care of Mary, this consecrated virgin, through marriage. The traditional view in Western Catholicism, typically accepted by Western theologians like St. Jerome, is that these were cousins of Jesus, not step-siblings. There is no infallible pronouncement on the matter, so a Catholic is free to believe either the cousin tradition, the Western tradition, or the Eastern tradition, that these are step-siblings from Joseph's first marriage. So that's where Catholics get their understanding, their reasoning from. Where or what account of history supports Bible Time with Charlie's view? No idea. When he says look back at history, I'm not sure where exactly he wants us to look. Whether he knows it or not, he is getting his knowledge that Joseph had children from the same place Catholics get it from. Neither the Gospel accounts nor the early Christians attest to the notion that Mary had other children. The faithful knew, through the witness of scripture and tradition, that Jesus was Mary's only child, and that she remained a lifelong virgin. The Reformers also knew this, but Protestantism is a moving target, so really it just depends on who you're asking. Claim 3.
Catholics go so far as to say, oh no, Joseph's children, they were from a previous marriage. It's like, where is that documented in the Bible?
Again, it's not documented in the Bible. And again, nor is Bible Time with Charlie's second claim about Joseph having children, but he accepts that. He seems to expect Scripture to explicitly lay out Claim 3, but not Claim 2, which he thinks works against the Catholic position. This is either a double standard or he's contradicting himself. I assume, whichever one it is, he does so without realizing it. The Bible doesn't conclude for us that Joseph's children were from a previous marriage. It doesn't contradict Scripture, but no, it is not found in Scripture. Nor is Mary having a bunch of other babies with Joseph. What's your point? Scripture does provide us with positive evidence for Mary's perpetual virginity. I've got a whole video on that. But since Protestants adhere to sola interpretura, inferring their own preconceptions from Matthew 13:55, in spite of history and Christ's authority given to his one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, it seems that they can't see that the rejection of the perpetual virginity of Mary is anti-biblical, ahistorical, and devoid of context. And the final claim, Claim 4.
Right there it says Jesus had brothers, folks. Catholics need to read Matthew chapter 13, verse 55. Mary didn't stay a virgin her whole life. I'm sorry to break that news to you, Catholics.
I'm a Catholic, and I'll do you one better, Bible Time with Charlie. I will read it in context. And when Jesus had finished these parables, he went away from there. And coming to his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, "Where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all this?" And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own country and in his own house." And he did not do many mighty works there because of their unbelief. What are we reading? Jesus begins to preach to this community, and immediately they question his wisdom and authority. They know him as merely the carpenter's son. They took offense at him. What's more, the passage emphasizes the tension between familiarity and faith, that people struggle to accept divine revelation, divine truths, or they struggle to see God's will and work because they think they already know it, know him. What's interesting about Bible Time with Charlie and other Protestants who take this verse to mean Mary had lots of babies, apart from the simple and apparent fact that this verse says absolutely nothing about that, what's interesting is that in the verse that they pull out of context and quote, Matthew's not speaking, he's quoting the local men of Jesus' hometown. Men who get offended by Jesus' authority and wisdom, men who reject Jesus' identity, men who cannot see who Jesus is. That's what this passage is about, the rejection of Jesus and his authority. The speakers do not recognize Jesus as the Christ, the Son of God, only as the son of the carpenter. They are scandalized by that which is unfamiliar to them because they think they know him. Their understanding of Jesus and the Holy Family is flawed, limited, and this is where you want to go to support your late, Protestant tradition. The rejection of Jesus's identity and the miscomprehension of the Holy Family. Solid.